Buonasera, dobro večer, good evening, guten Abend. I'm very sorry I don't know the Albanian for good evening. Bil Roman. Very good. Thank you for your help. My name is Franz Prueller. I work for the ERSTE Foundation and I would like to welcome you tonight. This is not the opening of the forum. We are here for a special event that the Center for Advanced Studies, the Revoltella Museum, the European Fund for the Balkans has organized for all of you who are here already tonight. And I'm looking very much forward to this evening. So from my side, only a really warm, obviously, welcome. And I hope you enjoy this evening, and I hope that we all will enjoy, learn, and profit from the next 2 days in this forum. It promises to be a really interesting, a challenging forum, a forum challenging for us as representatives of civil society, but also for those who are in the political field. And I think we really have a very interesting setting worked out by the colleagues from the various organizations for the next 2 days. So, but for tonight, enjoy the film that is going to come, enjoy the discussions that we're going to have, and the food and drink in the museum, and the museum itself as well. So, thank you all for coming. Thank you specifically the colleagues from the Center of Advanced Studies and the University of Rijeka, from the museum and from the European Fund for the Balkans for tonight. Have a great evening. Thank you.
Still not the time for the movie. I actually prepared a speech, but I'm very, very bad at reading speeches, and I know that nobody wants to have persons opening an event with a speech. So I decided instead to tell you a little story. This story is about a man, an Irishman, who lived 100 years ago. And this man decided at one point to move from his native Dublin and to come here in Italy to Trieste. He had a very simple wish. He just wanted to be a teacher. So he came here and started looking for a job. He found this job as a teacher, but he was really struggling with his salary of a teacher. He barely managed to buy even food for his family. He barely managed to find even a place to live. He had to live in an apartment above the language school where he worked. And sometimes he didn't even have money for bread. But then, one day, he decided to buy a mirror. And people around him were completely confused. Why did you decide to buy a mirror? You don't even have money for food. You don't have food for your family. Why a mirror? Can't you see all of the problems that you are struggling every single day? And he said to them, yes, I am completely aware about all of my problems. I see my problems every moment in my life. But then, only when I bought a mirror, and when I looked myself at the mirror, I finally saw the solution of all of my problems. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a story about James Joyce. This is a story about the writer who spent 15 years of his life at this very city where we are opening this event tonight. This is about James Joyce, who spent the most creative years here in Trieste. And why I'm telling this story now? I would like for you as participants, for all of us as representatives of the civil society, as supporters of the civil society in the Balkans, I would like us to have this story on our mind. I would like us to think about mirrors tonight, not only literal mirrors, but symbolical mirrors as well, and to reflect about all of our problems that we have. I'm sure that all of us are very aware about every single problem that we are facing every day as Balkans, as European Union. But only when we look at this mirror, we can finally see where the solution is. And the solution is this very group here that gathered tonight for this special event of the Civil Society Forum Trieste. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We decided to start this evening in a little bit different way than the previous forums. We wanted to go outside of the boundaries that we set in previous forums. And that's why we decided to start this event with a movie, with a documentary movie that we will all see tonight. And we see this movie as one of those symbolical mirrors. So let's try to use it and to reflect a little bit about our past, about our present, but also to try to envision together how we see our joint future as well. We decided to choose a movie called Trieste, Yugoslavia, made by the director who is coming from here, from Trieste. And we particularly choose this movie because it honors the specific relationship that the city of Trieste has with our region, with the Balkans, and specifically with people who are coming from our region. We are also very honored to have with us our partners and friends from the Center of Advanced Studies from Rijeka, our partners from University of Rijeka, and many fellows who I see now sitting here in the front row, who will join us in the discussion after the movie. I want to say that we are really grateful for the cooperation that we have with the Center for Advanced Studies, and this is exactly why we decided to co-organize this event with them. These people that will join us here tonight after the movie are exactly why we gathered here tonight for this event. We want to discuss together, to reflect together, and to put some positive input for the next 2 days that will follow this special event of the forum. We would also like to express our special gratitude to Ms. Laura Carlini, the director of the Museum Revoltella, who are hosting us here tonight. We think that it's the best place to start this specific event and the forum itself, because this place allows us not only to think about the past, but also to creatively envision our joint future. This is a place of contemporary and modern art, and this is the best surrounding to actually think creatively for the future couple of days, and of course, for the days to come. I would like just to invite you to prepare yourself to be inspired, to be excited by this evening tonight, and challenged as well. So before we start this journey with Trieste, Yugoslavia documentary movie, I want to say once more on behalf of all of the organizers of the Civil Society Forum Trieste, welcome and enjoy the evening. Thank you. I can't think of a single person more capable of moderating this session and discussion that will follow than our dear colleague and supporter of the Civil Society Forum and Balkans itself, Vedran Džihić, and of course the colleagues who are joining us here from University of Rijeka and from Center for Advanced Studies. And now I'm giving floor to Vedran, who will have a pleasure to introduce our very, very special guests who are joining this discussion tonight. Vedran, the floor is yours.
Kriya, can you just take... So this is the perfect start. The person who is most capable of leading the discussion, is not able to find Rade Šebeđija. So Rade, please come and join us. So, what to say after the movie? This is probably the impossible way to start the discussion. The movie was an exclamation mark to start the Civil Society Forum and to start the Western Balkans Forum. And this is finally that the Civil Society Forum is coming home. If we then regard, after this movie, Trieste as being some kind of utopian home of the past Yugoslav generations. So, welcome, my name is Veldran Džihić. I'm one of the directors of the Center of Advanced Studies. The light is quite strong, so I will just move my head back and forth as quick as I can, which is one of the preconditions to become director of the Center of Advanced Studies. Thank you. As I said, the movie was an exclamation mark, and the discussion is a kind of an improvisation that was designed to stimulate the evening, and the evening after the discussion where you have to consume some wine. You will probably not be able to find books. This is what, who was it who was in the movie? Velikić, yeah, he told us the story about the books and the wines. So we have a wonderful, this is not a panel, as this is an improvisation, this is not a panel, this is a bunch of nice people, of good people, that joined us for the next 60 minutes. On my left, is this right? On my left? It's good to be on the left. So this is Snježana Prijić-Samardžija. She is also one of the directors of the Center of Advanced Studies, and at the same time, she was just a few weeks ago elected as a new rector of the University of Rijeka. And we will then ask Snježana if she was one of those that were jumping from Rijeka to Trieste to drink a coffee back in the 80s. Snježana?
Not only for coffee, but also for jeans, for vinyls, it was a kind of, we were actually in Rijeka privileged because thank you. We were a privileged class, we were a privileged town in the former Yugoslavia, because only 70 kilometers from Rijeka to Trieste, so it will be definitely a question of status, to come every month, at least every month to Trieste to buy not only jeans, not only coffee, but to drink coffee. And when we became intellectuals, older, then it will be vinyls, books, wines, etc., to come here. So definitely we participate in this utopia, or it seems to me dystopia, definitely. So we can saw from the movie, from the film, that how can be very fuzzy the borders between utopia, nostalgia, and actually dystopia. Yeah.
Snježana is referring to the title that we gave to this evening discussion. And this is Back to the Future. Remember the movie from the 80s, Back to the Future. And a movie was, in a way, for some of us, going back to the possible future in the past. That was, at that time, one of the possible futures for the former Yugoslavs. Marek Silvasi is one of the fellows from the Center of Advanced Studies. He is not from former Yugoslavia, so there was no future for him. No jeans future back in the 80s, but something else. He's working on Roma issues, and he is from Czech Republic. Still some Back to the Future in Czech Republic nowadays. Marek, just one sentence at the beginning.
Okay. I think there is a big connection for me as well, because although being born in the early 80s, I didn't really go through this big storm of buying products in Trieste, but there would be my parents, their generation, and indeed, like if you would in Czechoslovakia, if you wanted to say jeans, you would say rifle is the proper name for jeans, and so they would be like the generation of my parents would be telling me stories about traveling the night trains to Budapest to get rifle. I didn't have this connection that actually these were the people from from Yugoslavia who were bringing the stuff to Budapest, and then it traveled further to Prague and Bratislava. So that's perhaps my very quick connection to the story.
Perfect. Then I will just for a second skip the man with the guitar and go to Gruja Badescu, not from former Yugoslavia, but very close to it. And spent a lot of time as he's also one of the fellows of CAS, obviously. And he was working on divided cities and on Sarajevo, etc., etc. But now the Romanian, so you are from Romania originally. What's your connection to the, after watching the movie, to this Back to the Future?
Thank you very much. And first of all, I think it's a fabulous start to the whole discussions to have this film here. And for me, watching it was a sense of joy of hearing all these stories, but also a sense of sadness, thinking of our own experience as a country where people needed a visa to even leave the country. And somehow these genes arrived like in a trickle-down way. Some of them arrived in Timișoara, and arrived towards Romania. But it's Yugoslavia was always seen, and this is what's interesting about how things are nested. Yugoslavia was the free country, our only free neighbor somehow. So the Iron Curtain for us started at our border, and this idea of openness, and also the idea of when the 1990s started to unfold, for Romanians, and you might not know this, it was somehow a tragedy just to see what was happening in the country that was seen as the socialist paradise somehow. It's interesting. You probably know the dramatic dimensions of Romanian socialism under Ceausescu, and how people used to say that the only neighbors to look up to were Yugoslavia and the Black Sea. And so it is a sense of a way of nostalgia for me, which is watching this and think of the nested stories and how borders and curtains somehow are, what I mean in a relational sense.
Thank you for the beginning. So then I just want to say a few sentences, and then I'm going to introduce the man with the guitar. So when I travel to places like Trieste or to Belgrade, to Sarajevo, I have to inform my father where I'm traveling to. So he is the child of the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. He went through the 90s, through the destruction of the livable life that we have in the title. So the title is Back to the Future, Livable Life Between Nostalgia and Utopia. And as I told him recently that I'm going to travel to Trieste and that we are going to see a movie about genes, etc., etc. And then he immediately told me, so, Guy, take the one photo that you have from your childhood, and you know, I was born in the 70s, and there were not many pictures of us, not like no Instagrams, no nothing. And there are only few pictures. One of the pictures is my becoming a pioneer, and the second one of the pictures that I have is my daddy in one of the jeans holding me as a small baby. And then I was traveling today, listening to the radio, and in one moment they played the song by Kemal Monteno, Sarajevo, ljubavi moja, Sarajevo, my love. And that was the song when the war started, and I left my home country during the war, at the beginning of the war. When the war started in April 1992, at the television of Sarajevo, they were playing this song, Sarajevo, ljubavi moja, while the people were protesting on the streets of Sarajevo. Some of them were shot. That was the beginning of the war. So, when we speak about nostalgia, when we speak about the present, and we speak about the utopia, we always involve emotions. At the same time, we know that emotions are not enough to judge the present. And this is why, at this very moment, for me, this kind of emotions between genes, me as a small baby, daddy, then me traveling, listening to the song, and usually when I listen to that song, I'm close to the tears. So this is for me the question to Rade Šerbedžija, who is, if you want to define him, zoon Jugoslavicum par excellence, but he has had so many roles in his life. Rade, when you think about this, when you go back to your future, when you think about Trieste, when you think about the 90s, where you left the country and spent a lot of your time and life somewhere else, what pops up in your mind?
First of all, I must say that talking about this, our experience with Trieste and commenting this film, I have to say only one thing, that I feel somehow shame sitting beside this guy, you know, because at that time, when his father was in Czechoslovakia, I was a young man in Yugoslavia. When I was 16, I remember I asked my mother to go to Trieste to buy me this raincoat, popular raincoats. But everyone in my small city, Vinkovci, where I grew up in Slavonia, between Belgrade and Zagreb, everybody wearing, you know, green color shushkavats. And I fall in love, I saw one brown. And I asked my mother to go to Trieste, to bring me to Trieste to buy me brown color raincoat and shushkavats. It was a luxury. I would like to say, you know, I apologize. And just had this kind of, I don't know, understanding. At that time, what was happening with these people in Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Albania, Romania, we were like in this socialism, we were in kind of paradise comparing with them. And that one thing what I would like to say, but also to think about history. How easy things changed in our life. Now we are poor. Czechoslovakia and Romanians and Hungarians are in better position. Their life is better. But not only this. Well, I can understand if it's, you know, like if we talking about these differences only in economic situation, you know, something like this. The worst thing is that in Czechoslovakia, I heard before Second World War was 0% of people как се казва, неписмени. Yes. It's why they separate so easy, Slovakian and Czechoslovakian, I think so. In Yugoslavia, the most problem with our people was, you know, that we had so many primitive people. And then when help us, all these fantastic politicians, our politicians and leaders from the world, including America, England, Nizozemska, Francuska, everybody, with their help, you know, it finished like it finished in our country. And it happened, this terrible war. And there were so many people who died and had to leave their own country, their houses, became refugees all around the world. That's, you know, interesting thing to think about. So when I came here, you know, if you ask me, yeah, I brought my guitar here because at that time, 1991, when war started, I was in Belgrade. Actually, I'm from Croatia, but at the time when war started, I moved to Belgrade, not because of the war, because of my private life. I just got married. And when war started and when it was, you know, I mean, many it's something what they can do. And I wrote one song in Belgrade when it happened, when it was bombing of Dubrovnik. Like my message to Serbian young guys, young people, to not to go to this war. And then this song was forbidden, of course, in Serbia. But I was singing this in front of this, kako se kaže, ne skupština, ne znam gdje je to bilo. Yeah. And there were 100 people there with Nataša Kandić, my friend, and some others. And after that, this song actually became so popular in Bosnia, 1992, because, you know, people were afraid that this war, what happened in Croatia, will come to Bosnia. And actually it happened, right? And every night they was finishing TV news with my song. So I don't know, maybe, okay.
I mean, you see, this is a CAS co-production. Rade is honorary fellow of CAS, and Nataša Serduška just jumped in 15 minutes before the start of the discussion to translate the song for you in English first before Rade plays it then afterwards. So, Nataša Serduška from Macedonia and CAS.
This is a second call, going to war. Some new kids going to war. They defend a country from a country, and people from the people of its own. They defend sea from land, and land from the sea of its own. But I won't go against a friend I know. I won't go against the people of my own. Year 72, silence, desert. Year 72 is fertile. The green table of orgies of the violent killers. Year 72, the year is fertile. Year 73, lining right. Year 73, let it go and return back. You're defending a country from the country of its own, and people from the people of its own. You're defending a sea from land, and land from the sea of its own.
I brane zemlju, zemlju, i pjesmu koju sam napisao tada kada je rat krenuo, prestao sam da pjevam jer me je bilo stid. I tako je bilo apsurdno da je pjevam. Jer jednostavno narod protiv naroda je krenuo. I na koncertima je mojim nikad ne pjevam. Oh, sorry. I just wanted to say, yeah. Come on, tell them what that is.
I mean, he stopped singing this song out of the shame that he felt then throughout the 90s, and the destruction of friendship that you are singing about, basically. So it's a kind of so this is then basically the civil society forum where bunch of friends is together to try to shape a new possible future. So, Rade, thank you so much. So we could probably stay in the past for quite a long and fill the evening with the nostalgia or with thinking about possibility of friendship back then and destruction of friendship, etc., etc. And we will be overwhelmed with emotions. But let us try to make the step from the emotions towards the present and towards thinking about the possible future for the region. And I deliberately include Czech Republic and then Romania and all the Eastern and Southeastern European countries into this kind of future, utopian future. So what we have seen in the movie, you remember the scene with salami under the skirt, and you remember this the quote, the guy quoting ladies having 9 pence, appearing to be thick, and even though they were thin or fat. And you remember the guy telling us that some of them thought that they were pregnant, but they were not pregnant. And this metaphor of being pregnant and not pregnant, being fat and at the same time thin, being in a way having this salami under the skirts. This is a metaphor for the possibility of the impossible, or the impossible possibility that's were explored in the movie. And this brings me this kind of how to live in between and how to live impossible possibility in the present. And this brings me to a set of questions to all of you. When we look at the horizon in Eastern Europe, Southeastern Europe, when we look at the globe, and I will just quote Judith Butler, she recently said the horizon of hope has narrowed. That was following the election of Trump to the US presidency. The horizon of hope has narrowed. So the question would be for all of us, and for first for Snježana, Marek, once again Rade and Jura, the question will be what is basically the present that we live? Do we have to go back to the future to imagine this impossible possibility today? How can we frame and think our societies beyond all the phenomena that we face, social inequalities, marginalization, deepening, I mean, in our region, deepening nationalism, authoritarian tendencies popping up, between the question how to defend freedom, how to defend friendship that Rade was just quoting. So let us just for a while, departing from the past and from nostalgia, think about the possible, the realm of possibilities today for this livable life that we all basically in the Civil Society Forum want to create. So Snježana, what will be your 5 or 25, I don't know how much was the coffee in Trieste in the 80s, 25 cents or lira?
Let me, Vedran, just to say at the beginning, you know, it's just a trivia, but I would like to say that I'm really very happy and appreciate, you know, for the possibility to participate in this civil society forum. You know, it's not just etiquette, but we are really happy that we can participate as a Center for Advanced Studies and also University of Rijeka at this forum to show how deeply we are actually supporters of the civil society. So I would like to say this. So thank you very much for the organizers to invite us. Concerning your question, Vedran, I have very strong impression that actually we stuck between actually two narratives. The narratives of nostalgia on the one side and narratives of utopia on the other side. And it seems to me that each phenomenon always, try to be explained, in the terms of that. For instance, when we try to establish, Center for Advanced Studies Southeast Europe before five years, actually, we were accused, not only at that time, but now also that we are, the institution of nostalgia, that we would try to reinvent, some new Yugoslavia, Southeast Europe, to find some other, framework from our nostalgic people or something like that. On the other side, we were identified as a people who are utopian. On the other side, too idealistic, who think that after all these terrible things happened during the war, we would like, to find some, utopistic scenarios, And I mentioned before that actually between these, nostalgia and utopia, actually probably we find ourselves in some kind of dystopian scenarios. But yeah, our aim and our goal when we try to establish, the CAS and all our activities and all our fellows, actually would try to think beyond, these narratives of nostalgia and utopia. I do not want that I would like to be, I do not would like to be misunderstood. I appreciate very much the people who can articulate their memories, their nostalgia and some artistic artworks. On the other side, appreciate very much the young people, and not only the young people in the soul who find the strength for idealism. But I think, that now we need to rely on something Hannah Arendt or Italian Renaissance people find as the homo faber, because we are not the only people who find stuck between the nostalgia and utopia. The Greek mythology actually remind all the time their people on the golden age. They live there in the Iron Age and they remember of the golden age. The people always have the need for some lost paradise, to reminiscence of some lost paradise on the one side, or some heaven's kingdom on the other side. So there is very usual narratives recognized in philosophy, etc., etc. But I would like to stress that our aim in Center for Advanced Studies, that we would like, to live beyond these narratives. And when I said homo faber, I really think that we refer on the people who try to live here and now, and try to be critical, and try to be proactive, and try to take her destiny in her hand. It's not animal laborer, it's a homo faber in the proper sense, to think about the social relations now and here, to realize what happens at this very moment, thinking on nostalgia on the one side and probably utopia on the other side, but try to escape, present danger of dystopia, so.
So, Kriya, you would like to connect on Snezhina?
Yeah, actually, I would like to bridge a bit with some of the previous comments. If you think about also about nostalgia and how and somehow how sometimes we're stuck in a vision of the past. I'm thinking of my time. I spent a year in Belgrade and a year in Sarajevo for my PhD. I was working on architectural reconstruction and dealing with the past there. I want to refer a bit to Sarajevo and this idea of how many people who went through the city or returned to the city will talk about the lost cosmopolitanism, or the Sarajevski Duh, the atmosphere of the city, and talking about all the people who arrived and have changed in a dramatic way the character of the city. And because this was mentioned a bit before, and one of the issues is that when you create new forms of exclusion based on fears of different forms of difference. And a lot of people, I was working with the Center for Displaced People in Sarajevo, and I interviewed many people who felt really unwelcome in the city, and they tried to make a home, but because the others were too cosmopolitan, they did not reach them. So maybe, in a way, working through forms of nostalgia that actually create exclusions because of forms of bitterness, and opening up and making bridges with people whom beyond the usual suspects, let's say, of how I understand alterity in the Balkans. This happens not only in former Yugoslavia, also in Romania. There's this whole discussion today about who's the urban, who's the civilized, and who's not, and but how. And every time we have a revolt in the streets, and you probably know Romanians kind of go into and take public space, and we had 500,000 in January. But there's always a discussion about who are the simple people and why are they not there, and why and the other. So maybe one of the ideas of building, and going back to Hannah Arendt, the world in common. What is the world in common, and what kind of bridges and what kind of inclusions do we have to create? And so working with the past, but to create more inclusive futures also means going beyond some bitterness that people accumulated. I don't know if it's clear, but.
Marek, I just jump to you.
I try to answer, but before that I would like to react to Rade. Like I remember my mom and also my aunt saying that when they were young, it was big fashion among Czechoslovak women to date with the Serbian or Croatian men because they were somebody different. Now, of course, the economic part played a role, but now this movie and what you were saying about raincoats and jeans made me feel like that was the step ahead these men were having compared to men in Hungary or in Czechoslovakia. I'm not sure I'm going to follow in this nostalgia, but this movie was a really powerful scene for me, also from a perspective how there was towards the end somebody asked, one of these interlocutors asked, like, the interesting thing would be to find out where did this money go? What happened those? Because the experience from Czechoslovakia, but perhaps it can be translated in many other countries, that after the collapse of communism and socialism, those people who involved with this kind of economic advancement activities which were semi-legal or rather informal, they had much better starting point when the government decided to privatize, because these were actually the only one who could actually put the cash on the table. So throughout 90s, exactly people who were exchanging values, doing this kind of trade, perhaps were those who were having, who had a quite strong economic power throughout the country. So I think that's one of the interesting trajectory to follow, like where we are now as a consequence of the fact that the socialism has been built on some sort of notion of equality, but obviously it didn't work out the same way how the official ideology was working. There's this popular saying during socialism in Czechoslovakia, the person who is not stealing from the state is stealing from his own family. So I think like that with people traveling to Trieste were not traveling because of a personal needs and poverty. That was a way of making profit in very, very interesting sense. So it would be, for me, it would be really interesting if the movie would follow up on this part of, like, where are those people who were engaged with, those people who were exchanging the dinars for lira, and those people who were actually selling and making the profits of this. Like the war started, the business collapsed because was it because the Italians were not interested in buying, or was there something different? And it's I think like a very, because like it struck me that when there are people interviewed throughout the movie and you have all of them like a sort of cultural elite, and then there are two random guys with a coffee, and you have a witness there. Like the others are not witnesses. These are writers. These are like and an ordinary guy. And so I think that there is a tension over there in that part.
So, I mean, Marek, thank you for reminding us about this Czech Yugoslav story, but let me ask the same question to Rade. Snezhana just mentioned the dystopian present, so elements of dystopia in the present that we live, still being stuck between full democratic states, authoritarian tendencies, capitalism, some sorts of welfare state that is not emerging, etc., etc. So rather, when you think, I mean, and you have created together with your wife and with few wonderful friends close from here, Brioni, this Ulysses theater. And this is going to start on 15th of July. There will be a wonderful concert. Vlatko Stefanovski, Tadic, and Rada are going to play music on the 15th on Brioni. If you are around, go there. This is going to be an extraordinary event. And you have created a kind of a utopian place. For many Yugoslavs, Brioni was a utopia. Tito was there, mandarins, zoo. And now you have something, this Ulysses, on the soil of Croatia, in a situation where we have to acknowledge that this is a kind of a normal utopia that we dream of. At the same time, we have these elements of dystopia. How would you like just see this difference, or if there is any difference from your point of view between dystopia and utopia, and if there is any song that you could sing just to illustrate that one, which is much easier than just to say it many words, that will be wonderful. So Rade.
Yeah, listen, yeah. When we organized and started this theater on Brioni, it was 2001. It was actually a year when I came back to my country after 11 years I spent in London and outside of my country. It was time when socialistic party again got a power, running power, Ivica Račan, who was premier, and then they invited me to start a theater there. And we came and I started this theater on Brioni. But when we say Brioni, it's always something, like memories of this untouchable, unreachable area where President Tito used to have his kako se to kaže, summer residence, yeah, and it was forbidden for normal people to come there. But the point is that we as artists, actors, musicians, we live in some old, in very bad states, hotels, some military hotels, very bad category. It's zero category. And we are performing on a close island to this big Brioni, on a small Brioni. There is nothing there, only one old Austro-Hungarian fortress. And it was actually one of the biggest Austro-Hungarian fortresses, built at the end of 19th century. And it's beautiful, really. And then we started theater there. And we are trying, to invite all theaters and actors and different people from this region, all former Yugoslavia. A lot of people from Belgrade, Bosnia, Montenegro, coming to Croatia and join us in this theater. But thinking about this. What we are talking now about nostalgic, yeah, and future. I'm thinking like this. Look at this. Yeah, I'm nostalgic. I'm Yugoslavian, but not in political way. I know there is no chance for new Yugoslavia, and I'm sad that it's happened. What happened? But I can't forget all these things, you know, when I was watching this film or, you know, films like this, you know, about this life, what we had at that time, and the country we had. We had a country, 23 millions. It was a powerful country. Now, for me, problem is with these people who are now living in new countries. Let's say, I don't know how many, Natasha, how many Serbs are in Serbia? About, what, 9 millions? What? 7 millions. Croats are 4.5 millions, right? Slovenians are 2 and something. Just 2. We have 500,000 proud Montenegrins. Then we have separated Bosnians, you know. And where is the problem for me? Problem is that now watching this film, yeah, how we were going to Trieste, buying these clothes and food and everything, you know, to touch this better life, you know. Now what we have much better shops and everything in our countries. But there are, you know, Germans, Austrians, Americans, you know, they came to our house, you know. They came to our streets, to our cities. They bought everything. They are 90% of banks in Croatia are foreigners, are Germans, Austrians, even Americans. So they keep everything in their hands. We haven't anything. We only have our languages. But we are small nations and small languages. And now what I'm afraid, thinking about future, what it will be, what will defend us from all this foreign influence and power? Only languages. But you know what? Our grandchildren, grandchildren, with open borders, when they have 4 hours to jump in a car and go to Vienna, without borders, they will learn German language. And that's my thoughts, and somehow, you know, sad thinking about our future. But maybe I remember I read somewhere that maybe that's a destiny of small nations.
Thank you really so much. We don't want to extend the evening endlessly, but one particular topic that is inherent to the movie, I just want to raise at the end for the kind of a concluding round on the table. So the going to Trieste and buying jeans or the šuškavac was a symbol of freedom. Was a mirror that you were watching, that you were able to enter into and to be free, to have the šuškavac, to sell even the šuškavac if you had like 10 on you back in Prijedor or somewhere else in my hometown. So and the freedom is basically one of the crucial terms that is circling around the Civil Society Forum series. How to create preconditions to exercise freedom, to live livable life, to live normal lives. And I'm quite impressed by the fact that at the Center for Advanced Studies 1.5 years ago, we invited Judith Butler to Belgrade to a huge conference. She presented a new book, and we discussed with her. And there was one important sentence that she said about freedom that stuck to my mind. And this was the following one, and I'm just going to quote it briefly. Freedom can only be exercised if there is enough support for the exercise of freedom, a material condition that enters into the act that it makes possible. A material condition that enters into the act that it makes possible. So, the crucial question that I want to ask by the end, and you know, there is Hannah Arendt was mentioned. Hannah Arendt was said the sense and the meaning of politics is exercising freedom, is freedom. And if we just think about the freedom and about the next 2 days, where the heads of governments and ministers of foreign affairs are going to come together to discuss connectivity and youth exchange and RICO, IT, innovation, etc., etc. We are basically still in a situation where we don't have preconditions to exercise the freedom for the majority, for the many. We are the few. We are the few in the room. We have the possibility. We speak the languages. We travel. But for the many that are excluded, that are marginalized, Marek is working on Roma. They don't have this possibility to exercise the freedom. So my final question and final round for all of you would be, what is the kind of action beyond nostalgia? What is the act that has to enter into a force by exercising, by creating preconditions for exercising freedom? What is the fundament of freedom that we have to reclaim nowadays in order not to fall into some kind of nostalgia, crying over the past, crying over ourselves, but being able to be proactive in this Butler's sense. So, Graham, may I ask you to just few concluding sentences on the preconditions for freedom?
Well, it's interesting. Watching the movie, I was thinking kind of underlining argument was the free trade, the narrative about free trade, and it's interesting how can it be manipulated in many ways. But now, regarding to this question, and also what I was saying earlier, it's about how do you enhance people's freedom for actually building bridges by including them in all the dialogues? Because I also noticed as Marek about we had two witnesses and everybody else was a writer. So why are they just witnesses? So how do we make them be actually participants and not witnesses? So freedom, I think freedom and I think, okay, in a cliche, if you look at even the French, freedom always has to come together with a quest for equality, but for enhancement of possibilities and with solidarity. So it's about, it's kind of creating dignity for everyone so that they are free. And just a final reflection to this film, which is not related to freedom, is and to kind of to reflect back to your statements from before, is that I mean, we never know what happens. Things change. Think of Trieste's position, because also Trieste was kind of the absent somehow in the conversation. How it changed, and what's interesting, this film starts as if nothing happened before 45, but in fact these people knew each other. And this is not mentioned. These people, I mean, these regions were so intertwined, and it's not like a border that just appeared. The same will happen. We don't know what's going to happen, but things that we think that now, this present that keeps us somehow in a particular prison of the present, the freedom of the future is that we don't know what borders mean, what the situation of Trieste or of Rijeka or of so many cities has changed so much in the last 100 years. We don't know what's going to happen. So in a way, that's liberating. That's scary, but that's liberating. So.
Well, you know what? Thinking about nowadays world and everything what's going on, what's happening, wars, and thinking about in my country, I'm very desperate. and pessimist. And on the other hand, as a professor on university, when I'm working with my students, I'm teaching acting, I'm trying to be positive and trying to teach them to be optimist, to believe, to try to find, their way, to find freedom, to be nice and gentle, and to feel brotherhood in the world, and all these things. That's, what I think about what I can do. Forget myself and think about them.
I hope I can be skipped on this because it's an extremely complex question, right? So it's answering in by few sentence slogan would be perhaps the worst thing I could do. And I really think like we're living an interesting time, and I really think that maybe one of the first steps which should be done, it's maybe start like instead of acting quickly, really start to think about what's happening, because I think there's quite a little. We are all like driven by some sort of action-oriented world, and I think like we miss the coordinate to interpret what is actually happening, and there would be more things should be. I think this movie also is one of the examples. If we define freedom as a possibility to buy, reflect, and go traveling to Trieste for a coffee, there's something significantly disturbing about this way of defining freedom, because the socialist world was trying to set up the freedom in some different respect. And a few days ago, I've been in Bucharest and visiting a hospital where HIV positive Roma sex workers are being treated, and there's one NGO which works with them, and there's very little they can do because they don't have resources. They don't want to replace the state in the responsibilities. But what's their mission and their ambition? Why are they there? Is that somebody needs to provide dignity to, like, treating these people as people. A dignity is something which these people miss. Everybody, that's something perhaps where as a baseline, a treatment and dignity, then all other sorts of empowerment. I think we also live very much in a time where too much of the paternalistic solutions are circulating around. Not everybody, also in this room probably, everybody would have a specific solution how to treat Roma inclusion in Europe. So I think like more of this listening to and bottom-up approaches would be perhaps where the freedom would lie for me in our world.
I also hoped some easier questions for the end. I agree with Marek that there is something paradoxical in the notion of freedom if people perceive their freedom in the consumerism, in capitalism, in luxury, and the attaining of the better social status. It seems that there is something very, very contextual in our understanding of the freedom. Also, I know the people who killed for the freedom. So I perceived myself the freedom always as a kind of state of inner state, some kind of inner freedom. But you are definitely refer on some kind of political freedom. And if you ask me, I don't have the recipe or the methodology for the freedom, except to say that probably it's some continuous and permanent exercising of the creating the context in which the people could be open, could be critical, could make some communications with other people. So something like that to create the circumstances in which all the people can express their, let us say, stances, their attitudes, something like that.
Thank you so much. I mean, I'm the only one. I'm hopefully not the only one standing between you and the food, standing between you and the Trieste wine, because I have one wish that I'm going to direct to Rade. But first of all, you know, in former Yugoslavia there was this ekonomsko-propagandni program, EPP, this kind of a break where you just announce something. So in this ekonomsko-propagandni program, and I'm looking towards Hedwig and Franz Karl, both of you, ERSTE Foundation and the European Fund for the Balkans, you made the CAS, the Center of Advanced Studies, possible. I didn't manage to, and I'm so sorry to, Natasha joined us on the panel. There were a few other fellows of CAS sitting in the first row. Maria and Matea, sorry but we will then, you will be engaged during the wine session afterwards, so sorry. But if we would like to sum up, there is no way to sum up the discussion because it was a kind of a spontaneous, hopefully inspiration. There is this interesting and famous quote by Hannah Arendt, and I want to conclude with that one and then ask Rade, pose my wish. And she tells us there, like, the necessary move that you have to do is to combine two forms of existence. The one is the solitary life of the mind and the active life of politics or civil society. This is basically the evening that was designed, and the movie was designed to try to combine this solitary life of mind and the active part of life that we are going to start tomorrow in the morning is it at 9, Hedwig? It's too early, but still, it's fine. We will be late probably. And then you know that, I mean, when we just conclude with words, this is fine, but not enough. Rather, this is just a spontaneous attack on you. You were speaking about Ponderosa in the movie. Is there any chance that you could play Ponderosa by the end? Yes. Yeah, that will be perfect.
You know, I'm here close to. I live in Rijeka, and I have a house in Pula, in actually Fažana, near Fažana. So Trieste is so close, and Trieste is. But now I'm, you know, as an old man now, you know, I'm coming to Trieste to have the best pasta and to join in this beautiful city, you know, now without my people on Ponterosso. It's so beautiful to see this empty, fantastic city, you know, and I know it will be much better for whole city, you know, that they have again all these people, you know, coming here and, you know, and it would be great, you know, but now I find something really, other things, you know, why I love to come to Trieste.
And so?
Oh, you know what?
He was trying to escape singing by...
But it's not, you know, I don't know, okay, if you was, I had an idea, you know, when we were talking about this, to talk about this, these young people who are leaving our country and going to the world. And it's something, as you know, as everybody knows, you know, it's a terrible situation. And I wrote a song about one refugee from Mostar. Her name is Aida. And she was in Mostar, one of the most beautiful girls. Everybody knew her and were in love with her. Suddenly she appeared during the war. She crossed this old bridge. A few days after that bridge was destroyed, and nobody didn't know where she finished. Somebody was talking that they saw her in London, in Oxford Circus, you know. Somebody saw her in Amsterdam. Somebody saw her in Singapore, and she was actually somewhere with some river, thinking about her Mostar, and she knows that anything will be same without all the bridge, but never twice passing by, you know. starog mosta izula se bosa na kamen sjela kao da je nije tog dodira dosta stamenit na dreku kao da se htjela onda je ponijela duga kolona njemu ko svim što oči krije još su je vidjeli kraj stadiona i više niko vidio nije hej gdje li je sad Aida iz starog grada gdje li je sada Aida iz starog grada u malom gradu znao je svaki bila je grob, bila je plako, kada ona prođe mahalom starom, zasjane bile su u gradu i druge sjajne, ali u njej bilo neke tajne. Niko u Mahali nije znao ko je sa Idom uskovao. Gdje li je sada Aida iz starog grada? Sada starog grada. Jedan je vidio u sred Londona na Oxford Streetu bez kišobrana. Drugi je siguran to je bila ona u kišnoj luci neki se Dilber u život kleo da je Aidu u Singapuru sreo, a treći opet da je blizu prošla kraj njega, prošla ej, gdje li je sada Aida iz starog grada? Ej, gdje li je sada Aida iz starog grada? Ma gdje da bila, isti bol je guši, nože se vruci, ko zove kaladar. Razdaljine strašne razdiru joj grudi, s mirisom perja i suzom u behanu. Aida s nekom mutnom rijekom osta, dalekom svijetu, zemlja je teče. Nije više isto bez staroga mosta,
there is still a single person standing between you and the dinner, and that's me, just officially to thank to our guests for joining us tonight. To thank you all as well for joining us. I see that the bigger group is here now. Many of you traveled a long way to come here for this famous coffee from Trieste that we promise tomorrow morning from 8:30 at Molo, when we will actually have an official opening of the Civil Society Forum in Trieste. So I'm sure you will not be late tomorrow. And for tonight, we would like first to invite you for a drink here in the lobby of the museum, and then for a cocktail dinner that will follow in the rooms in the old part of the museum, Revoltella. And since we are already here in this amazing institution, we wanted to invite you also to join the tour of museum that will start around 9:15. So if there are some of you who are interested to join the tour, we will be in the old part of the building. Enjoy the evening.